Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to the first installment of Advanced Archetypes, where we cover all of the 42 archetypes in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Advanced Player's Guide. In today's inaugural episode, we're going to be going over some very simple basics, as well as the first 6 alphabetical archetypes. I'm going to be skipping over the Investigator, Oracle, Swashbuckler, and Witch archetypes, as they're just multi-class archetypes that work very similar to the ones in the core rulebook. The other archetypes found in this book do not contain the class or multi-class traits like those four. If you're not sure how archetypes work, may I recommend the video in the top right corner where I go over the very basics of what an archetype is and how it functions. The only change that kind of comes with these new archetypes is that along with their unique feats, they also grant some feats that were prior available only to specific classes, such as the Assassin gaining access to some rogue feats. However, most of the time these feats have to be taken at a higher level using the archetype than from the primary class, like how the Ranger gets Companion's Cry at 4th level, but Beastmasters can't take it until 6th level. I'm also not going to be ranking these archetypes in any way, as there's so much outside information that goes into balancing them that I wouldn't be able to process it all in time to make an accurate judgment. So instead I'm just going to explain them and give my personal thoughts on the archetype. This video is already going to be roughly half an hour long, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be covering the Acrobat, the Archaeologist, the Archer, the Assassin, the Bastion, and the Beastmaster. Starting off, the Acrobat, unsurprisingly, makes a ton of use of the Acrobatics skill check. Its dedication gives pretty much everything you could expect from it. One thing that's really nice about this one is just taking the dedication automatically increases you to an expert in acrobatics. You do not even need to spend a skill increase on it, and at levels 7 and 15, it automatically increases to master and then to legendary, again, without spending a skill increase. So just taking the dedication from this is like getting 3 completely free skill increases. It also allows you, when using the tumble through action to move through an enemy character, it no longer treats it as difficult terrain, so you can tumble up to your speed. So those large creatures that take up a bunch of squares on the battlefield no longer hinder you when moving through them, provided you don't fail your tumble check. That's everything for the dedication. So the Contortionist feat grants you the Quick Squeeze skill feat, so right away you're already getting another feat from taking this, and it also allows you to squeeze at full speed. If you're unfamiliar, the squeeze ability, the squeeze action, allows you to move into spaces that are incredibly narrow, like if you were moving between 2 really close together walls and kind of sidling through them, you would be using the squeeze action, which usually limits you, but with this feat you can move at full speed. Additionally, if you're being grappled or restrained by something and you use the escape action, as long as you use it, I believe, with acrobatics, and you escape from your bonds, the target that was binding you becomes flat-footed until the end of that turn. Dodge away is sort of similar to the level 1 rogue feat Nimble Dodge, just a little bit different. Instead of getting +2 armor class to the triggering attack, you only get +1, but in addition, after you dodge the attack, you get to take a step action for free. And once you're a master in acrobatics, you can move 10 feet with that step instead of just 5. But remember, you do have to have the attack miss. If it hits you, you do not get the step action. Graceful Leaper is pretty simple, but honestly really useful. It allows you to make high jump and long jump checks as acrobatics instead of athletics. I like this. It lets you use these checks if you don't have a massive strength stat, and I'm kind of into it. Plus, again, it's a skill feat, so you don't even have to waste a class feat to take this. Tumbling Strike, in my opinion, is the acrobatic. Everything about it revolves around this maneuver. For one action, you get to tumble through an enemy to up to your speed, so long as you end adjacent to that enemy. What this means is you can really easily set up flanking, and you get to strike. So it's similar to some of those martial class feats that allow you to move and strike in one action. Additionally, if you succeed your tumble through check and tumble through an enemy, you then get to make that strike for free, and they are considered flat-footed. Granted, that's only on a critical success. If you just succeed the tumble check, you still tumble through them and then get to strike them. And even if you fail your tumble check, you still make a normal strike. Now, this is a flourish, so you can only do it once per round, but it's really good. Like, being able to move and attack and inflict flat-footed with one action is incredible. That is the reason to take the Acrobat archetype from a combat perspective. Finally, Tumbling Opportunist just makes Tumbling Strike better. When you successfully tumble through someone and make the attack, as a free action afterwards, you can use acrobatics to attempt to trip them. So not only can you, in one action, move, strike, and make them flat-footed, now as a free action, which basically means it's still in one action, you can also trip them prone afterwards. This is incredible. Some final thoughts is that the Acrobat is a really cool archetype to support your existing abilities. It's great for non-rogues who want to be able to make enemies flat-footed and get around the arena a little bit faster in combat. Even rogues can still make use of this, as Tumbling Strike would also be a sneak attack for a rogue, because, rogues sneak attack any flat-footed target. So as long as you crit succeed your tumble through, your next attack is a sneak attack, so long as it hits. The only downside is that this archetype is completely useless if you don't have a good dexterity stat. If you have a 10 in dexterity, you're not going to be critically succeeding your acrobatics check, so it's not really worth it. But if you are a character with good dexterity, this is an archetype worth looking into. The Archaeologist, just to take it, you need at least trained in Perception, Society, and Thievery, which is really interesting, but I guess it makes sense. I think they're going for that for the dexterous, being very careful with things. Just taking the dedication increases you to an expert in Society and Thievery. Again, there's 2 free skill increases just for taking a dedication, which is fantastic. Though, unlike the Acrobat, it doesn't automatically increase you to Master and Legendary at later levels. This one stops at Expert. But it also gives you +1 to recall knowledge about really anything old. Specifically ancient peoples, history, and cultures, which I feel like if you're smart and you can convince your GM, you can apply that to almost anything. Oh, we're in these old ruinous dungeon? Can I roll recall knowledge to see how they would likely have constructed this place? Oh, we're fighting a vampire. Can I roll recall knowledge to see how he grew and he learned his society when he was younger? Magical Scholastics just grants you 3 cantrips, even if you're not a spellcaster. You get Detect Magic, Guidance, and Read Aura as occult cantrips you can cast at will. Really good. Settlement Scholastics is a little bit more situational, but you can still make good use of it. You gain a lore skill about a certain settlement that you know well enough, as well as you learn a language that was spoken in that settlement. Again, can be really useful if your campaign allows it to be, but it can also equally be just as useless. Scholastic Identification, I think, is the heart of this archetype. It allows you to use the Society skill to both identify magic items, and just identify magic in general, as well as decipher any kind of writing. Even magical writing, you can attempt to decipher with the Society skill. It's such a good feat, and it's really what this is all built around. Archaeologist's luck is kind of cool. It stands out, I think, from a little bit more of the feats, but it makes sense. It's the more Indiana Jones, where once per hour you can re-roll a d20 on a check involving a trap. And this is any check, so a disarm check, a saving throw against its effect. It's really, really useful. Yeah, it's if you want to go with a more Indiana Jones style archaeologist. Greater Magical Scholastics is if you really want to get into finding and preserving things, things that may or may not belong in a museum. You gain Augury, Locate, and Non-Detection, which can all be cast once per day. Augury allowing you to take a slight glimpse into the future. Locate, as long as you've seen the item before, you can get a vague idea of where it is and in what direction, as well as Non-Detection, being able to cast specifically only on objects with the Archaeologist archetype, but it makes it so that object cannot be detected by magic. So this entire feat is around figuring out where something is, finding it, and keeping it hidden from, with top men. Finally, the Archaeologist also gets access to 2 rogue feats, Trap Finder and Delay Trap. Again, much more along the Indiana Jones trap aversion style Archaeologist, but pretty good. I suppose I should mention here that I'm not going to be going into class-specific feats super detailed, because after this, the other 4 get a ton of these, and that would end up being half the video just explaining feats that already exist. So if you're interested in the feats that I mentioned that belong to core classes, I definitely recommend going to check them out. Final thoughts on the Archaeologist is that it's an amazing roleplay archetype. Just taking the skill feats is worth its weight in gold. Being able to identify magic and writing with just the Society skill, that's worth a few skill feats. And if you don't have anything cool to get from your class features that level, feel free to just take the cantrips. And then if you've already taken the cantrips, taking the Greater Magical Scholastics is great. Augury, Locate, and Non-Detection can all be really, really useful. Especially if you're a non-magical class, like a fighter or a champion. Moving on to the Archer. Starting with the dedication, you become trained with all weapons in the bow group, which does include crossbows. Anytime your class increases your proficiency with any kind of weapon, your proficiency with bows goes up equally. What this means is that with someone like a wizard or a sorcerer, you're not going to go beyond expert with bows, even with this dedication. On the upside, once you become an expert or higher with any proficiency, your bow increases too, and you get access to the bow crit specialization group. What that does mean is you can take this on a fighter at 2nd level, and you'll already have the crit specialization for bows at 2nd level, because fighters start as an expert in everything. I'm still salty about fighters. The feat Quick Shot is really good, and is almost worth the dedication. In some cases, for one action, you can draw your bow and fire. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen my players lose an action just from having to draw a weapon, so especially if you get surprised in combat, and your GM is a jerk and attacks you when you're not ready. It's great to have something like this that just lets you draw a weapon and attack without skipping a beat. Advanced bow training, I think, is something that will actually get better as more books are published for the system. Because right now, you take the feat and it gives you access and proficiency with all advanced bows. All one of them. The Daikyu, which is just a longbow. It does the same damage as the longbow with 20-foot less range increment, but no volley. So it's an 80-foot range, and it doesn't take penalties for firing in close quarters, but that's really the only difference. It actually doesn't have a single weapon trait, which is so weird to see on an advanced weapon. So, kind of boring, in my opinion. You're just better off sticking with a longbow. Investing an entire class feat into this? Not a great idea. Crossbow Terror, however, is great. Crossbow Terror just gives you a flat +2 status bonus to damage when using a crossbow. And if your crossbow is simple, it increases the damage die by 1 step. So if it's a D8, it becomes a D10. If it's a D10, it becomes a D12. Because I've been asked this, but yes, heavy crossbows are simple weapons. So that D10 becomes a D12 crossbow. It's really good. This is definitely comparable to the Ranger's crossbow ace, and is just better. Along with how it has basically the same bonuses, but for the Ranger, it only affects your hunted prey, which you have to change manually, whereas Crossbow Terror is just every time you use a crossbow. You don't need any kind of setup. It's a really good feat. The only downside is that Crossbow Terror is at level 6, and Crossbow Ace for the Ranger is level 1. Archer's Aim is good in the right situation, but I don't know if it's worth a level 8 feat. It is a 2-action attack that gets a +2 to hit, ignores concealed enemies, and reduces the DC to hit a hidden enemy from 11 only down to 5. But is it worth 2 actions and an 8th level class feat for that is my question. It also has the Concentrate trait, which means there's also situations where you just can't use it. This one's just a bit underwhelming, especially since it's the last feat the Archer archetype gets. It's really underwhelming. I guess it's technically not the last feat. They get a bunch of feats from Ranger and Fighter. Assisting Shot, Point Blank Shot, Double Shot, Parting Shot, Running Reload, Triple Shot, Mobile Shot Stance, and Multi-Shot Stance. Really, you take this archetype, I think, for those additional feats. The unique ones are just sort of butter on top. Although Quick Shot is really good. Final thoughts is that the Archer archetype is a bit slow. Maybe take it as a backup weapon style if you mostly use melee. Take a few feats from this archetype just to have some diversity in your moveset. But a lot of these feats show up a bit late for what they're worth. Again, Crossbow Terror is really good, you just get it a little bit late. But if you're something like a wizard or a sorcerer, I recommend taking Crossbow Terror if you can afford to take it. Being proficient with crossbows and dealing bonus damage with them is great if you happen to run out of spell slots. The Assassin, we're halfway through. I have mixed feelings about the Assassin, but we'll get into that. When you take the dedication, you gain the Mark for Death activity. For 3 actions, you mark a target. You get +2 to Perception to seek that target, +2 to Deception to feint against that target, and all of your agile and finesse weapons that attack that target gain the Backstabber and Deadly D6 traits. That's all you get for the dedication. It's really not a lot. So let's see if the feats more than make up for it. Expert Backstabber. Backstabber weapon trait improves from +1 damage to +2 damage. And when you get a +3 weapon, when Backstabber would normally deal 2 extra damage, it now deals 4 extra damage. Kind of cool. I suppose it's not bad for a 4th level feat, but let's keep going. You get the Rogue's Surprise Attack feat, which they get as a class feature, and you take as a level 4 class feat. Basically, on the first round of combat, if if you are attacking an opponent who has not acted yet, they are flat-footed. Now, personally, I would not take this as a whole class feat to something that only affects the first round of combat and only the people who have not gone yet. Just very situational for a full feat. And this is only if you roll Deception or Stealth for initiative instead of Perception. Angel of Death is admittedly a really cool feat. Any creature you drop to 0 hit points dies instantly. So if you're fighting a character and for some reason your GM is allowing the enemies to use the death, dying, wounded system that the characters get to use, this is really good. It instant kills anybody that you've marked and dropped to 0 hit points. But the fun part is that anybody you kill cannot be brought back to life unless the effect is greater than half your level. So, and this is actually really cool, because you think about it, a resurrection spell, I don't know off the top of my head, maybe an 8th level, maybe a 9th level spell. If you're level 19 or 20, only a 10th level spell could bring this person back to life. It's absolutely insane. It does say that special artifacts and deity involvement can get around this, but if we're looking at strictly spells to bring a person back to life, that ain't happening if you're a high enough level. And the full culmination of the Assassin archetype, the Assassinate feat. It grants you a new 2-action ability, Assassinate. Now, you have to be completely undetected by your mark. Not hidden, not concealed, unnoticed and undetected. If you've gotten close enough to do so, you can make a melee strike against them, and on top of all your additional damage, you deal an additional 6d6 precision damage, which at level 12 is kind of okay. The cool part is that they have to make a fortitude save against your class DC, and if they critically fail, they die immediately. It doesn't matter how much health they have, but they die immediately. Now, this is an incapacitation effect, though this doesn't really apply, as you get this at level 12. So, unless you're fighting a level 25 creature at level 12, you can theoretically instant kill them. If you're fighting, I don't know, the Grim Reaper, and he rolls that nat 1 on his fortitude save, and you somehow snuck up on this guy, he will die instantly. But in the much more likely scenario of almost anybody, they'll get a normal failure, which means they take 66 damage. Kinda lame in my opinion. Final thoughts is that this is a very situational archetype. It really depends on your campaign, but also it could make for an interesting character that sort of hangs behind the party, and when combat starts, they spend their time sort of sneaking around behind the enemy and catching them by surprise, though this could be very slow and take a long time and probably wouldn't be very fun to play, as most of your turns would be move, hide check, move, hide check, and then by the time you sneak up and maybe assassinate someone for 6d6 damage plus a weapon attack, your team's probably already either died or killed the entire group. My main issue is with how difficult it is to pull off Assassinate. It doesn't say concealed, it doesn't say hidden, you have to be unnoticed by your target, which means they can't even be aware of your existence. If they know you're in the area, you can't assassinate them. I think they should have either made it work if you are hidden. That might be how I home rule it, if my players ever use this archetype, because 66 damage is not that much at level 12. There's a lot of stuff you get at level 12. Look at all of the 6th level spell, which every spellcaster will have at that point. They all do more than this. I know it's on top of your weapon strike, but it's just not great, man. I feel like 8d6 or maybe even 10d6 would be good enough. It doesn't even scale with levels. Once you're like level 14, 15, 66 bonus damage, if you don't get that instant kill, pretty much worthless. Just not worth the effort. Now, the Bastion. The Bastion is cool. Starting off with the dedication, you only get one thing. You get the Reactive Shield Fighter feat, which means as a reaction, you can raise your shield to increase your AC. Now remember, this is your reaction, so you can't use that to bring up your shield and shield block, but you still get a boost to the AC. And that's all you get from the dedication, but it's still pretty good. A full-on fighter feat just for taking the dedication, really, really good. Though it is worth mentioning you cannot take the dedication unless you already have the shield block general feat, which means the only people who can take this at second level, I believe, are fighters and champions. There's probably a way to get around it. I think there might be a human ancestry feat that lets you take a general feat, but nevertheless, chances are you're taking this archetype if you're already a fighter or a champion. The first feat you can take is Disarming Block, which lets you, if you successfully block an attack, you can take a free action to take the disarm action against your opponent. Really, really cool. You'll find this is sort of a theme around the entire archetype, is that it's doing more with your block action. It's making the block action far more than it was originally. Though Nimble Shield Hand, the next feat, is pretty fun. It just allows you to use the interact action with your shield. Technically, if you have a sword in one hand and a shield in the other, and you need to drink a health potion, well, you can't. You either have to drop your sword and draw the potion, or you just don't drink the potion. Whereas with this, you can still draw the potion, drink the potion. Anything that uses the interact action can still be used while you have a shield in your hand. Very, very useful. You cannot use a weapon in that hand, though. Even if you have this feat, you can't wield a second weapon and a shield, though that would be kind of hilarious. Destructive Block is such a cool feat idea. Hey guys, Future Nonat here. I'm just jumping in because past me completely misdescribed this feat, because up until recently, I actually misunderstood how shields work. So let me explain this to you guys. Normally, when you block, you reduce the damage taken by the shield's hardness, and then you and the shield both take the remaining damage. So if you're attacked for 10 damage, and your shield has a hardness of 5, you can reduce that attack by 5, and then you and the shield both take 5, because there's a 10 originally, it reduces it by 5, and you and your shield both take the remaining damage. What Destructive Block does is it doubles the hardness for you, but your shield takes a much larger hit. In that same example, if you are being attacked for 10 damage, and you use Destructive Block, you will double the hardness to 10. But that only applies to yourself. So you, the character, would take 0 damage. However, your shield would take double the damage before hardness. So you would take 0, but your shield would take 20 damage from just a 10 damage hit. Obviously, this is made to destroy your shield. So if you're being attacked for 30 damage and you use this, you would still take 20 after the 10 hardness reduces it, and your shield would take 60 points of damage. Pretty much anytime you use this, it will destroy your shield. However, that's where the next feat comes into play. The final feat, Shield Salvation, does kind of fix that and makes it so you really don't need an indestructible shield. If your shield would be destroyed once per day, it can hang on with 1 hit point. Now granted, this is below the broken threshold, so it no longer functions as a functional shield, but it's not destroyed, which means it can be repaired. You can only do this once per day per shield, but what this does mean, especially if your strength is high enough to have a very, very heavy carrying capacity, is you could have 2, 3, maybe 4 shields in your backpack, and for one action after your shield is destroyed, maybe drop it for free action, and then draw a new one. It's kind of ridiculous, but I love the idea. On top of all of this, you also gain access to the additional feats Shielded Stride, Reflexive Shield, Shield Warden, Quick Shield Block, and Mirror Shield. My final thoughts are that the Bastion is a fantastic archetype. It expands on mechanics that already existed within some other classes and grants new features around it. In my opinion, this is what an archetype should look like. The ability to do more with something you already had. From being able to disarm attackers, reduce damage taken by more, and even save shields from being destroyed, all fantastic. On top of all of that, the feats all have synergy with each other and work together to make the entire archetype feel like one fleshed out, almost like a subclass. This is how I feel an archetype should feel, and I kind of have similar thoughts about the Acrobat from earlier. Finally, boy, the Beastmaster. This almost feels like a new class or maybe just a subclass of Ranger. There's a lot to this, so strap in. Starting off, the dedication is fairly simple. You get an animal companion. It follows the same rules as the core rulebook. The only exception is that if you already have an animal companion, this grants you a second one. Even though the core rules say you cannot have more than one animal companion, this breaks that rule and allows you to have 2. The catch is that only one can be active at a time. This requires some suspension of belief in that when you have one active companion, your inactive companion is dismissed and sent to hunt around the wilderness and just survive close enough to you that you can call it back at a moment's notice. And when you call one, the other one just runs off and does its own thing. It's strictly a game balance thing, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but just roll with it, because this archetype is cool. Additionally, any focus spells gotten from the Beastmaster are considered primal spells and use Charisma as the casting modifier. I personally would have thought wisdom, but I guess they just want to do something different, and now you can have a charisma-based ranger. I guess you don't have to be a ranger to take this. Additional companion is super self-explanatory. You get another companion. Follows the same rules, you can still only have one active, and you can take this feat multiple times, and you can have a maximum of 4 different animal companions, which is really neat. Heal animal, you get the heal companion focus spell. It's basically the heal spell, but better, like can only be used on companions. Already at level 4, mature Beastmaster companion. All of your companions become mature, and even if you don't command an animal in combat, they get to make a free stride or strike action no matter what. It's crazy they get this at 4th level. Beastmaster's Trance is an interesting focus spell. It lets you see through the senses of your companion. You can't control it, you can't issue any more commands. It's only useful if you've already told them to do something and you want to keep an eye on them. Or, you're using them to scout for information. It's kind of cool. I understand why it's not super overpowered and that you can just control the companion. I just kind of wish it did a little bit more. And then already again at level 8, incredible companions. You can upgrade them to nimble or savage already. Again, not much more to go into. These are things that are in the core rulebook, so if you're interested, check out the video in the corner. Beastmaster Bond, plain and simple, 100-foot telepathic communication with your animal. Really useful. If for some reason you can't hear each other, you can still command them using telepathy, or you can contact and receive information from your companion without making a sound. Great for stealth, great for recon, great for combat. Beastmaster's Call is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in Pathfinder. You get to summon an illusion projection of one of your inactive companions onto one square unoccupied square within 30 feet, and it applies its support benefit until the start of your next turn. This is so freaking cool! You get to summon just like a phantasm of one of your other companions, and it still provides the effect, which means if you have like a raptor companion, you can just spend one action to summon him on the opposite side of your enemy, and bam, you're flanking. Not because of the raptor being there, but because of the raptor's support benefit granting flanking. This is so cool, and with all of the new animal companions and the old ones, there are so many things you can do with it. Oh, I love it. It is worth noting, if the Phantasm takes any damage whatsoever, it does disappear right then. And here we are again, level 14, Specialized Companions. All of your companions, not one, but all of them, get to take a specialization from the list in the core rulebook. And you can take this feat up to 3 times, which means all of your animal companions can have up to 3 specializations, meaning you can have this arsenal of interchangeable companions for any situation. Oh, it's so cool. And finally, the really big, unique one is Lead the Pack, up to 2 active companions at one time. Now, this does come with some pretty strict limitations. If you don't command any of them, only one of them gets a free stride or strike. And when you command them, you can either command one of them to take 2 actions, or both of them to take 1 stride or strike action. You cannot command both of them to take 2 actions. Honestly, that would just break the action economy. So it makes you split up your command and animal, but it gets another body on the field, especially at that high level. Being able to just outnumber your enemies is such an advantage in and of itself. It's just a fantastic feat. In addition to all their unique feats, they also get access to Magic Hide, Wild Empathy, Companion's Cry, Enlarge Companion, and Side by Side. So my final thoughts on the Beastmaster is that this is a crazy amount of options for just an archetype. I'm not complaining, it's just nuts how much they get. And the thing that stands out to me is that this archetype is better at using animal companions than a ranger. Their animal companions grow at the same rate as a druid's, which means they get everything 2 levels sooner than a ranger's animal companion. It's clear that Paizo put a lot of love into this archetype and wanted it to stand out. I would not doubt it for a second if they originally planned for it to be its entire own class. I mean, look at it. It already almost gets feats every single level. That's the craziest thing. You could ignore your primary class starting at level 2, and every single level just take a Beastmaster feat. Never take a class feat once. And you would still be viable. You would still be effective. That's the craziest part, especially a spellcaster. If you're a wizard, you're already getting spells automatically. You barely need the class feats. How about having a giant, mature bear that can just block for you and take hits and distract enemies? It's just nuts, especially with most spells in the game costing 2 actions and commanding your animal companion being 1 action. Good lord. This is so cool. The sheer options are staggering. And that is the first 6 archetypes out of 42 new archetypes. Maybe technically 38 if you don't count the 4 from the new classes. Holy crap, guys. There is so much to go over. If we're doing 6 a week, we should be done after about 6 or 7 weeks, probably within 2 months. We'll probably be done by the end of August. There's a lot to go over, so I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I hope you guys are looking forward to more. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing and ring the bell to know exactly when the next video goes live. I want to give a huge shout out to Quidthulu, Troy Hughes, Paul Rand, and the rest of my fantastic patrons. If you're interested, there are links in the Discord to my Patreon, where I do upload an exclusive video every Thursday. There's a link to our community Discord, where everyone is welcome. We hang out, we talk Pathfinder, D&D, video games, media, everything. It's just a fun place to hang out. And finally, a link to my Twitter, where you can follow me, and I sometimes say stupid things. That's about it. Let me know in the comments if you plan to use any of these archetypes, any cool ideas you have for class combinations using some of these, like the wizard beastmaster idea I just had sounds really, really cool. Let me know what you're thinking about. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, no nat ones.